remarkable ability to know when an athlete needed praising and when he needed scolding. Most people need both at some point, but which do they respond to? Some people can take constructive criticism in public. Some people can't. Do you know your people? How do they like feedback? You know, the whole thing is you praise in public, criticize in private. But that's not always true. Some people don't like to be praised in public. So find out what they like. It's not what you like. What do they like? What connects with them? Because everybody's different. I would ask my players, I would have a preseason meeting. I'd say, what helps get the best out of you? And I had one kid one time, he said, well, coach, if I make a mistake, you don't really need to tell me because I probably already know. And he was like straight A, super smart. And I thought, in my mind, well, we might have a problem because that's kind of my job, but I knew how to handle them, right? I had another kid that said, well, coach, you got to push me. You got to ride me. Now I know, right? That kid was Regional Player of the Year. Right? But I knew how to coach him because I had asked. I didn't assume. Looking at education, talking about humility. We value personal humility and institutional confidence. I love that phrase. We believe God has made us a first-class institution. We're not afraid to act like it. But since that's a gift from God, we should instill humility, not swagger. Confidence, not arrogance. It's that fine line, right? Between humility and arrogance. Knowing we do a good job, but know why you do a good job. What's the purpose? How does it connect? And that you can always do better. Coach Dungy took a lot of criticism when he was first a head coach. Oh, you can't coach his way. Because he's not a big yeller. Coaching in the NFL. You can't be in the NFL and not dog test guys. Well, he won the Super Bowl with the Colts. What did he say? None of us was ever left thinking he was the most important piece of the puzzle, but rather he was a significant piece. And that every piece was an important and necessary element to achieve team goals. Does everybody on your team feel valued? And you say, well, I'm not the boss. That's not my job. Yes, it is your job. What can you do for your peer? Remember our 360-degree leadership? What can you do to make your peer feel valued, even if the boss isn't? What can you do? Maybe on a team. What if your boss doesn't feel valued? You know they're doing a great job in a bad situation, and their next level is not recognizing it. Dean Smith, retired as the all-time winningest coach at North Carolina men's basketball, said the most effective leaders understand that whether they like it or not, they lead by example. So again, you have to lead by example, but it's not enough. They're watching. They're always watching. Last R, renew. And some people, well, isn't that pretty much the same as rejuvenate? Well, no, it's slightly different. We want to make new. We want to restore the freshness. To do again. Begin again is part of life. Repeat. You can't be excellent once. Right? You've got to be excellent day after day. Client after client, customer after customer, whatever it is, facility after facility. Wherever I am, it's got to be over and over. I got to renew, and I got to bring that same enthusiasm. Even when I don't want to. Even when I don't feel good. What does the research say? Trust facilitates organizational change. So, going back to the beginning, man, we got to make some changes. Now your boss comes to you and says, well, we're going to have to change your role. We're going to have to move you over here. What happens if there's no trust? Well, are you moving over there because you're trying to get rid of him? You moving me because you don't like it? Right? But now if there's been a vision communicated clearly, and now I can trust my boss, that's more likely to happen and happen effectively. So how do I build trust? Communication, especially informal, little things, little bits. Incentives and communication increase when there's a turnaround. We're talking about this right now in my department. I mean, just right now. I got a meeting later this week about this. How can we incentivize certain behaviors when we have nothing really to incentivize them with? There's no money. We can't give money. So what's the incentive? And that's what we're trying to create. Talk about intrinsic motivation, extrinsic motivation. So what can we do? I mean, that's a real dilemma that we have right now. But you better find a way. Okay? I don't know how your budget and your unit works. Is there something like a lot of times as professors, like we can't get any money, but they might give us some training money. Or we can go to a conference or something. Right, so what is it you can incentivize the behaviors you're trying to see repeated? And your communication, how can you increase communication? I don't know anything about squash. Anybody play squash? I don't. But I know I read this book. This is probably the best book I've ever read about coaching and leadership. Called Run to the Roar. This guy, well, he won 252 straight matches. 13 straight national championships. At a small college, beating the Ivy Leagues and all these schools that took squash serious. That's a lot. So about trust, he said, if you feel fear, you will live with regret. You will fail. You will not learn. You have to feel brave and calm. You have to run to the roar. How do you get your peers, your boss, your people to feel brave and calm in their role? So run to the roar. When the stuff hits the fan, like it does everywhere, right? When something under some situation, how do you get your people to, instead of being, here we go, right? But no, here, we're going to run to the roar, we're going to attack this negative situation, right? Because I have trust. I trust in them, they trust in me, we've communicated. That's how we're going to get out of this situation. And if I sent the PowerPoint to the organizers, and if anybody wants the PowerPoint, I'm happy to send it to you. In education, in trust, and then personally, trust once broken is nearly impossible to restore. Here's an example my college coach used. He said, here's trust. Right? When you break trust, now I can tape this back, I can staple it back, I can glue it back, but it's not the same. Right? Trust once broken is nearly impossible to fully restore. And then I love this phrase, trust sprints out of town. Returns in a crawl. You can rebuild trust, but it's hard. Right? And it takes a long time. It takes a lot longer than it took to lose it. I love this phrasing also. Communication. Vision. So I came in, together we created this new vision. Right? Here's how we're going to do things. Here's why. Vision leaks. It leaks. So communicate regularly. Even if you all gave input, I got your input, we came up with a plan. If we're not constantly reinforcing it, it leaks. We've got to have buy-in. So going back to our incentives, how can our incentives tie to what we said our vision was? Right? Everything needs to be aligned and connected. Pat Summitt won 8 national titles, 1,098 games. I coached men at Tennessee for 3 years. But I got to see her. And here's the thing about her, about interpersonal communication and humility. She treated me like I was a national champion. I was just a starting out low man on the totem pole. And she had a huge impact. She said communication is necessary in order to avoid confusion. It's vital to any organization to be clear. When you communicate, you eliminate mistakes. Communicate, communicate, communicate. She's famous for her definite dozen. Her players, Lady Balls, they just won last night to go to the Sweet 16. Her definite dozen. So her players got a binder just like this. Her definite dozen is printed on here. It's her 12 things. You can Google that. It's free. But number 1, respect yourself and others. Like, this was in the locker room. It's on the binder of the kids' kit. It's talked about. There was no question what that Lady Balls were about. It wasn't, well, I'm not sure what Coach wants. You knew what Coach wanted, right? You knew what she wanted because she communicated clearly. But I'm going to tell you this. I worked for 2 head coaches on the men's side, and I asked one of them who had played with Dean Smith, Michael Jordan's best friend, national champion in North Carolina. I said, Coach, what's the most important thing you learned from Coach Summitt? And Coach, you know, day planners, back in the day, everybody had the physical day planners. Coach had a day planner on his desk. He said she came up to the day planner and went, where are your players? Where are your players in here? You're going to go off and speak to the Lions Club and all these things, got all these things going on. Where are your players? Intentionality, right? Intentional communication, small things. Big House Gaines, retired with the 2nd most wins ever, was the first black coach to win an NCAA national championship at Winston-Salem State. Said, I discovered one of the most effective means of communication was simply putting a player in the front seat of the car and driving around. Now, times have changed a little bit for legal purposes. I wouldn't recommend that. However, I would recommend finding an informal way to communicate with your people. So looking back, I'm not a graphic design person, but I designed that rear view mirror. We think that's the best I can do. So looking in the rear view mirror, we have the three areas. Professional knowledge. Do you know what it takes to be successful in your role? Professional knowledge. Do you know what you're talking about? Don't. Work on it. Do you know yourself? Intrapersonally. What are your strengths and weaknesses? Can you communicate well? How can you work on that? Okay? And then think about, how do I get that next level? So the first two levels are on you. Right? That third level you might not have interest or time in. That's why you come to things like this. Right? But just know there's multiple perspectives. So you take those multiple perspectives, you think about all the influences and the roles of your life. Right? What's going to work for you to be authentic? Because you can't be any of those coaches I showed. Right? I can't be Pat Summitt or Bear Bryant. I've got to be me. If I try to be them, I'm going to fail. So be the best version of you to reach those goals. So revamp. Evaluate your situation. Don't think you have all the answers coming in. Revise the plan, but never waver from your values. You can't be somebody that just shifts back and forth. This is what we believe. We might change our strategy a little bit, but our principles got to be rock solid. We're going to connect with our people with humility and communicate our plan daily, because vision leads, right? Daily communication. We're going to renew. We're going to start fresh, right? So we're honest. Like as a leader, you say, hey, this situation stinks that we're in right now. We're in a bad spot. You're honest, right? You don't try and cover up things. But you know what? We're going to start fresh. We're going to learn from the past here. We're not going to be chained by the past. Given what we have, I believe in you because I know you, you know me, and we're going to do this together. We're going to do the best we can together. It's the only way you're going to get a turnaround. And no matter what, you're still going to face this. This is what somebody on the board said about Bear Bryant. Hell's bells! We done hired ourselves an idiot! His first year at Alabama. He went on to win 6 national titles, break the all-time wins record. So you're going to have critics no matter what. Don't worry about the critics. They're coming no matter what. So do what you know is right, communicate it, and you have your best chance. So thank you so much. We have just a second here. If there's a question, or if anyone wants to email me, or you want to see me afterwards, so maybe I have things to do. Thank you very much for your time. I got a quick question. Absolutely. My email's up here if you want the presentation. Shoot me an email.